Is Apple worth watching? How much sharper can the lines be? Can Ted Cruz explain how constitutionally denying rights defends liberty? Will a white Christian be able to tell me what it feels like to be in the minority? For March 13th, 2015, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in slowly thawing Cranston, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For March 13th, 2015, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. Apple's entry into the smartwatch arena is still a month away. With established, mature, less expensive, popular players already in the marketplace and compatible with a broader range of smartphones, is the Apple Watch compelling? Maybe. At $350 for the cheapo strippy model, I tend to think it's not that compelling, especially since I have an Android device. Blurred lines, not so blurry. A Los Angeles jury awarded over $7 million to the estate of Marvin Gaye over similarities between Gaye's 1977 hit Got to Give It Up and Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams. Interestingly, the plaintiffs, Gaye's heirs, did not assert that Thicke and Williams had plagiarized the melody, the lyrics, or the chord progression, but so-called atmospherics, such as party noises and so on. Songwriters and musicians are suggesting that this could be having a chilling effect. Maybe, but aren't artists supposed to be driven by constraints? Canadian-born U.S. Senator from Texas, Ted Danger to Self and Others Cruz, has opened his mouth again, and sound came out, but it was like that third-season Star Trek episode, The Lights of Zatar, wherein the Enterprise encounters a mysterious space storm that hits the ship and affects no one except Lieutenant Mira Romaine. Then the storm takes a turn and heads to Memory Alpha, a planetoid that houses the Federation's archives, like the Library of Congress, but for the whole galaxy. And the storm gets there, and most of the people there are killed, but they come across this one woman who's apparently not dead, but lying on the floor. And she opens her mouth, and this weird croaking sound comes out for like 20 seconds. And she gurns a bit for the camera and dies. It was like that, except Cruz said that not having a constitutional amendment explicitly permitting states to deny homosexual couples the right to the same benefits, privileges, and responsibilities as heterosexual couples is a real danger to our liberty. The Public Religion Research Institute has recently published the results of a study which, according to the Huffington Post, reveals that white Christians are now the minority in 19 U.S. states, including Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana. A minority, for those of you unfamiliar with fundamental statistics, is a proportion of a population less than half the total. And for the purposes of this study, Christian includes evangelical Protestants, mainline Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Mormons who identify as white non-Hispanic. So, that's got a sting. Hey gang, it's time for celebrity birthdays once again. Let's rock. For the 7th, Peter Sarsgaard. For the 8th, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., dead. For the 9th, Marty Ingalls. For the 10th, Chuck Norris. For the 11th, Joey Buttafuoco. For the 12th, Barbara Feldon. For the 13th, L. Ron Hubbard, dead. And thank goodness for that. That's celebrity birthdays. I'm Paul Torville, and I'm done! Don't go away. Coming up next, gang banging like a senator, yo! For those with discriminating tastes. And did you save that email?
Have you been injured in an accident, or can you pretend to have been? If so, we may be entitled to 40% of any settlement you receive. We're the law offices of Angry, Bitter, Vindictive, and Rosenblatt, and we've spent over half a century profiting from the pain and suffering of people who, in some cases, didn't even know they were suffering or in pain. At Angry, Bitter, Vindictive, and Rosenblatt, our attorneys have the skills and experience necessary to turn almost any activity into billable hours, and that means you can pay us more. Angry, Bitter, Vindictive, and Rosenblatt, specializing in personal injury, family law, product liability claims, and almost any other area where emotion weighs more than evidence. Angry, Bitter, Vindictive, and Rosenblatt, getting richer off your mild discomfort since 1955.
Darrell Revis? Following the delightfully droll and unifying remarks of Benjamin Netanyahu Sirius to a joint session of the U.S. Congress last week, an open letter to the leadership of Iran signed by 47 U.S. senators was published. The letter was organized by Republican Senator from Arkansas Tom Cotton. Cotton has used open letters to draw attention to his interesting ideas before. In 2006, he wrote an open letter calling for journalists at the New York Times, including the editor of the Times, Bill Keller, to be imprisoned for espionage because the paper had published a story detailing a Bush administration secret program monitoring terrorists' finances. The letter amounts to an uninvited backhanded civics lesson. It reveals the 47 senators to be both petty and power mad. And for a bunch of lawyers, sure, they're not all lawyers, but there's enough of them there that they should be able to persuade the non-lawyers to take a second and think about this. This seems like a really dumb move. And then there's the Logan Act. The Logan Act, enacted January 30th, 1799, states in part, quote, "Any citizen of the United States without authority of the United States carries on any correspondence with any foreign government with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government in relation to any disputes or controversies with the United States, or to defeat the measures of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both." End quote. Senator Cotton's letter seems to be an attempt to torpedo negotiations through the use of threats veiled under a gossamer tissue of education. Fortunately, there is a petition live on whitehouse.gov that seeks to have the Gang of 47 prosecuted under the Logan Act. And it has nearly 250,000 signatures, so that will probably go nowhere. A delightful gentleman named Gene Camara, a Muslim and former employee of the warehouse store Costco in Brooklyn, New York, is suing his former employer over what he claims is discrimination. He was originally hired as a cashier's assistant, which, as far as I can tell, amounts to being a bagger at a regular grocery store. Now, it was apparently no secret that Costco sells pork and alcohol, and Mr. Camara was apparently already aware that his religion, which he apparently takes very seriously, prohibited him from handling pork and alcohol. It should be plain to anyone with enough brain power to run the autonomic nervous system of a frog that if you work at a store that sells a thing, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have to come into contact with that thing, and that there is a practical limit to how much accommodation an employer can be expected to make for someone who basically says, "I can't do the job you hired me for because this book I like says it's icky." As a cashier's assistant, Mr. Camara, as any person with enough imagination to figure out that if you drop a ball, it will land on the floor, encountered pork and complained to his superiors that his religion forbade him from handling pork. His superiors transferred him to lot duty, retrieving shopping carts. What an insult! So he asked to be transferred to the electronics department. Now, to me, if you've got just enough intellectual wherewithal to be a cashier's assistant at a Costco, there's a pretty good chance that you don't have the mojo to run down a features and performance comparison between this HP all-in-one PC and that Acer. Furthermore, As a cashier's assistant, you're not handling pork. You're handling packages containing pork. And you're not handling alcohol. You're handling bottles containing alcohol. That distinction was apparently lost on Mr. Camara and Muhammad and Allah and Mr. Camara's attorney, the delightfully named Chauncey Henry. For Mr. Camara to walk into a Costco and seek employment is sort of like a Jane walking into a slaughterhouse looking for work and then being appalled at all the killing going on. And as if all this other ridiculousness wasn't enough, Mr. Camara had the audacious temerity to remark, quote, "Just because you have a different belief, that doesn't give anybody the right to treat you different. We all share different beliefs, so we all should be treated equally no matter what belief we have." End quote. Now, it seems to me that's precisely what Costco was doing, treating him like anyone else. And he's asking, demanding, to be treated differently. You're a cashier's assistant. Do your job. Oh, you won't do your job? Because of your religion. Okay, go get the shopping carts. You don't want to go get the shopping carts. You want to work in electronics. You're not qualified to work in electronics. And anywhere else you work in the store could put you into contact with pork or alcohol or some derivative product. So, carts is about all we have. No? You're suing us. Seriously. Delightful. Hiillary Clinton may have wandered into a political minefield with her private email server. Considering all of the exciting political intrigue she and her husband, former President Bill Clinton, have stepped into and navigated beyond in the past, will this be the straw that breaks Hillary Clinton's political back, or the trial by fire that will prove her mettle for 2016? Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
Hillary Clinton is a lawyer, and all lawyers are slippery eels, not like honorable men, like Ted Cruz, Peter King, Mark Sanford, Larry Craig, or Mark Foley. They're true red-blooded Americans who are misunderstood and misrepresented by the vast liberal media conspiracy.
Hillary Clinton is probably not the most honest politician to come down the pike. I doubt she's the devil's concubine that Fox News would like you to believe she is, but I doubt she has the kind of integrity or appearance of integrity that a viable presidential candidate needs. I suspect this email thing is the final nail in the coffin for her presidential aspirations. Unless the Republicans run some greater of two evils, like Ted Nugent or Rick Perry. Hey.
That's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. And now here's your pastcast weather for Friday, March 13th, 2015. And here's your exclusive pastcast weather for the southern Atlantic coast. We had rainy conditions, mild, then sunny and cold. For Florida, we had sunny conditions, cool, rain, sunny, and warm because it's, Florida. The Great Lakes region had showers and mild conditions. I'm Paul Torville, and that's your exclusive pastcast weather. Don't touch that dial. Still to come, like a bad penny. He runs you over because he loves you. And feel all the torques.
It can be hard to think rationally when a loved one passes away. This can be especially true in the event of untimely death or when religious or cultural traditions demand quick interment of remains. Blue and Flatley Funeral Homes are here to ensure your needs are served in the most efficient and profitable way possible. At Blue and Flatley Funeral Homes, your money is very important to us, and we want to make sure we do everything you can afford to put your mind at ease. Blue and Flatley, profiting from the misery of others since 1883.
Early in his career, this entertainment renaissance man worked as a storyboard artist for Filmation on The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse and Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. He wrote for Barney Miller, Taxi, Cheers, and It's Garry Shandling's Show. After he'd done the work that would provide him the security he needed for the rest of his life, he co-created, directed, produced, wrote, and was the showrunner for The George Carlin Show. Later, he wrote, directed, and produced a number of other shows. He won 9 Primetime Emmys for his television work. As if that wasn't enough, he was also a boxing fan and even managed now-retired WBO champ Lamont Brewster. He was a staunch animal rights advocate, supporting PETA and Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, as well as his own animal shelter foundation and Save the Children. By the time of his death, he had amassed a $100 million fortune and gave it all to charity. Look who's dead! It's Simpsons co-developer, producer, writer, and first showrunner, Sam Simon. And now, here's Moose Weintraub with the Sports Half Minute.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute. It's a whole half minute of sports. 30 seconds of sports. Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
This is your Sports Half Minute. I'm Moose Weintraub. The hashtag Super Bowl is trending on Twitter. The game is over. Even I know that. Isn't it?
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
Thanks, Moose. Always a great report from Moose. California State Senator Roy Ashburn was spotted driving erratically about 2 a.m. Wednesday in downtown Sacramento. Fox News reports that he was charged with driving under the influence and driving with a blood alcohol level of 0.08% or higher. Fox News was also generous enough to mention that these were both misdemeanors. Fox News was also kind enough to mention that he is a father of 4 and even went so far as to share his completely flat, uninspiring lorem ipsum of an apology. The website Project Vote Smart reports Ashburn has voted against every gay rights measure since he became a state senator. That was what people in the comedy business call a setup. CBS13.com reports that he was arrested after leaving Faces, a gay nightclub in Midtown Sacramento. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the punch. And while the homophobe-bashing bat is still ringing in our hands, Joseph Hensley, a Tennessee state senator, has been accused by his ex-wife of both hitting her with the door of his truck and pushing legislation based on their divorce, as reported by local TV station WSMV-TV. Hensley denied the charges with an appeal to rationality, saying, "I would certainly not hurt anyone. I'm a doctor. Been a doctor 29 years. Certainly never jeopardize what it has taken years to achieve." Because everyone always considers the long-term consequences of their actions before acting out of rage. That's what rage does. It activates the, wait, let's stop and think about this, center of the brain. And the tie-in? Hensley has introduced 2 pieces of legislation in recent years, which suggests that he and Senator Ashburn might want to go out and enjoy an O'Doul's together after all this blows over. One in 2012 called the Don't Say Gay bill, and another in 2013 allowing college counselors to cite religious objections in rejecting LGBT students who were considering suicide. Human pride. Go humans. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? The BBC has awarded Top Gear host Jeremy Clarkson a 4-wheel independent suspension. Clarkson, long known as pompous, witty, acerbic, delicately caustic, charmingly racist, and highly entertaining, has been a source of both revenue and criticism for the BBC. Top Gear is a huge global property for the BBC, in no small part due to Clarkson's persona. A petition has been started to get Clarkson reinstated ASAP. Neither Clarkson nor his co-hosts James May and Richard Hammond seem especially concerned. The BBC has officially stated that the last 3 episodes of this current series of Top Gear will not air. Still waiting to see how this will play out. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, you can submit your story tips online at newsundies.com. You can also submit your story tips on Twitter with the hashtag NUSTip. If you like this video, please like this video. Thoughts, concerns, complaints, leave them in the comments below. NewsUndies is a weekly show. We'll be back on Friday, March 20th with fresh undies. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, ignore us on MySpace, tell your friends, and buy NewsUndies Kitsch. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at NewsUndies, until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be a frustrating genius collecting tens of millions of dollars a year from a job I left 20 years ago. I have serious doubts that I will be collecting tens of millions of dollars a year from a job I left 20 years ago. Because the job I left 20 years ago was the Navy. And that's 11 o'clock. Shit.